Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebekah Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom.
In our top story, Jerusalem has renewed its targeted attacks against Hamas in Gaza. This comes after the Iranian-backed terror group refused to release the remaining living hostages, effectively ending the fragile ceasefire. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a statement saying that this decision follows Hamas's repeated refusal to release the hostages and its rejection of all proposals it received from the U.S. negotiating team. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed that the surprise attacks targeted senior Hamas leadership throughout the Gaza Strip.
Israel's Home Front Command has issued public safety guidelines as the fighting with Hamas resumed. Jewish communities along the Gaza border have been instructed to transition from full operational status to restricted, which does not allow for educational activities. Schools in the area have been shuttered in anticipation of Hamas rocket fire, and Israelis living in the area have been encouraged to restock and prepare their bomb shelters in the case of another unrelenting barrage of missiles from the terrorist-infested enclave.
American warplanes pounded Houthi rebels' strongholds throughout Yemen last week after months of aggression from the Iranian-backed terror group. The strikes reportedly targeted the jihadi army's air defenses as well as its missile and drone arsenals. This show of force is meant to finally secure the strategic Red Sea shipping lanes and put the bloodthirsty Houthis out of commission. After Hamas infiltrated the Jewish state on October 7, 2023, the Houthis orchestrated attacks on more than 60 ships in the Red Sea. They hijacked 2 freighters, sunk a cargo ship, and abducted 25 crewmen who are still being held hostage in Yemen. They also fired hundreds of rockets and weaponized drones on Israel. One of them hit an elementary school near Tel Aviv in December. U.S. President Donald Trump ordered a series of devastating strikes on the Houthis and warned that America will hold Iran fully accountable for threatening worldwide shipping lanes. He said the hundreds of attacks made by sinister mobsters and thugs based in Yemen all emanate from and are created by Iran. He said every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon as being fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran, and Tehran will be held responsible.
Israel's Channel 12 News aired an exclusive interview with a retired Iranian Air Force colonel who asked Israel to help the resistance topple the Ayatollah's regime. The former Iranian military leader called on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to order an attack on the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's private residence. He pledged the support and cooperation of the Iranian opposition, which he said is ready to take over sensitive political centers. After that, they will officially announce Iran's freedom and friendship with Israel. He stressed that the Iranian people support further attacks on the fanatic Islamic theocracy and its rogue nuclear weapons program. And he added that once the Ayatollah is weakened, the Iranian resistance will take to the streets and cut the regime's roots from their country.
The Islamic Republic is reportedly using drones and facial recognition technology to further oppress the women of Iran. The United Nations released a report after conducting a 2-year investigation into Iranian rights abuses. It found that leaders of the fanatic Shiite regime ordered the use of drones and video surveillance to enforce hijab compliance in public spaces. Investigators also found that in addition to state-run surveillance software, Tehran is using an application that allows citizens to report hijab infractions and other violations of Sharia law. The app sends their information directly to the brutal morality police. The oppression of Iranian women began during the Islamic Revolution in 1979 and has increased exponentially under Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. In 2022, massive protests erupted across the Islamic Republic after Iranian morality police arrested and beat Mahsa Amini to death for wearing her hijab incorrectly. Iranian rights advocates continue to carry Mahsa Amini's mantra of women, life, freedom, and we all wait for the day that the Persian people are finally liberated from their radical Islamic oppressors.
In financial news, Israeli startup Wiz has announced its acquisition by Google parent company Alphabet for a whopping $32 billion. This is the biggest tech exit in Israeli history and Google's largest purchase to date. The Israeli cybersecurity unicorn is highly regarded as one of the fastest-growing cloud security companies providing advanced defense solutions. Wiz will remain an independent company under Google and continue to provide services for Google's main competitors like Microsoft and Amazon.
Jerusalem sent an emergency delegation to North Macedonia last week to assist with recovery efforts after a devastating nightclub fire killed at least 50 people and injured dozens of others. Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar announced the departure of the group of doctors, nurses, and burn specialists from Sheba Medical Center. He said they will stay on the ground in North Macedonia for as long as they are needed.
For the first time in decades, Syrian Druze have been allowed to cross the border into Israel to pray at the tomb of their patriarch Jethro near the city of Tiberias. The Druze are an ancient people who claim to be descended from Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses. Druze living in Israel are fiercely loyal to the Jewish state, which affords them full citizenship and rights. On the other hand, Druze living on the Syrian side of the border are facing unimaginable horrors at the hands of the new jihadi regime in Damascus. Israel has taken extraordinary measures to protect the Druze of Syria and has even established a buffer zone in the war-torn country to do so. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned the HTS Islamist group that Jerusalem will not tolerate any threat to the Druze community in Syria. Israel has also approved visas allowing Druze to work on the Israeli Golan Heights.
U.S. President Donald Trump has fulfilled another campaign promise by issuing deportation orders for foreigners who support terror. Students at Columbia University say that they feel safer after the arrest of Mahmoud Khalil, who they claim hates America and everything it stands for. U.S. officials have accused Khalil of organizing anti-Semitic protests at Columbia and have labeled him a terror sympathizer who poses a threat to national security. U.S. Customs officials detained another pro-terror activist at the Boston airport last week after she admitted attending the funeral for Hezbollah terror leader Hassan Nasrallah in Beirut. The Department of Homeland Security released a statement saying, "An American visa is a privilege, not a right," and it added that glorifying terrorists who kill Americans is grounds for visa denial. President Trump praised authorities for detaining the radical activists. He said, "We know there are more students at Columbia and other universities who have engaged in pro-terror, anti-Semitic, and anti-American activity, and the Trump administration will not tolerate it."
Israeli archaeologists excavating at Mount Megiddo have discovered evidence corroborating the biblical account of the death of King Josiah at the hands of Egyptian forces. Josiah was the 16th king of Judah, and according to the book of 2 Kings, he led sweeping religious reforms throughout the land of Israel, putting him at odds with Pharaoh Necho of Egypt. The scripture states that King Josiah was killed by the Pharaoh. Josiah's son, Jehoiakim, was enslaved and taken back to Egypt. A new article published in the Journal of the Old Testament claims that Egyptian and Greek pottery found at an ancient site in Megiddo dates to the 7th century BCE, which lines up with the biblical account. Israel 365 News reported that in 2019, archaeologists excavating at the city of David in Jerusalem discovered a First Temple period clay bulla or seal with the inscription Natan Melech, servant of the king. The book of 2 Kings chapter 23 names Natan Melech as an official who served in the court of King Josiah.
Member of Knesset Ohad Tal addressed the Israeli government on the importance of the relationship between Israel and the great state of Texas. Speaking on Texas Independence Day, Tal said Israelis and Texans share the profound appreciation for the values of faith, freedom, and resilience. He said, after all, Texas and Israel are sister Lone Star states. Tal thanked Texas Governor Greg Abbott for the state's support of Israel throughout history. He said the unwavering support for the Jewish state, Judea, and Samaria highlights the invaluable contribution to our shared bond. And he prayed that the enduring friendship between the people of Texas and Israel will continue to flourish.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. We're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Hila Fakliro. She is a Nova Festival survivor and advocate for Israel. Hila, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Tell our viewers a little about what happened at the Nova Festival on October 7th.
We went dancing around 4,000 people, and we come back 3,500 people. Hamas terrorists came to the party area in October 7 and start murder everybody without related to what is their religion, how old they are, where they're coming from, if they are Jewish or not.
And you were there during this festival. What happened to you specifically?
So in the beginning, when everything started, it was only missiles. I was hiding in the party area for like 1 hour and a half, and then I start running. I was running for 5 hours, 20 kilometers. I think it's around 10 miles-ish. Until I got to a village called Patish. I was hiding there for 4 more hours, and I managed to get back home at 8:30 that day.
It's a very traumatic experience to see something like that. It's something that you can't describe. Yet you've decided to go and speak around the world about this experience. Why was it important for you to get this information out?
I lost 6 friends at the Nova, and there are still 16 more people from the Nova Festival that holding hostages in Gaza, and I want to be the voice for the people that can't speak.
You know, Hamas was very proud of this massacre. They videoed it, they sent it around the world. Yet some people say it didn't really happen. What message do you have for those people?
In the end, they filmed that. We didn't film that. We have also video that my friends took. I just want people to listen, to hear the story, to speak with someone that's been there. Just listen and then decide. But if you choose a side without listening to both of the sides, I don't like it.
It's very frustrating, I understand, because it's so clear what happened. There's so much evidence what happened, but because of anti-Semitism, we see this spread. So it's important, people like you go and speak about this. But how has that been received? When you go and you speak to audiences and groups and people come on just like that, what is the kind of reaction you're getting?
It's funny, when I'm going outside of Israel and sharing my story, a lot of people don't believe, but after I show them videos and I share my story and I share the picture of the people that I lost, they start to understand what's going on, and then most of them tell me, okay, I think I need to look it up, to start searching what's happened, to learn more, to educate myself, because in the end it's happened. There is enough evidence that proves it's happened, and no matter if someone scream at me or hate me, in the end, this is the truth, and I'm going to stand behind it and to share it to the world.
How's Hila? How are you doing after this? You know, it's very hard to bounce back from seeing massacred people. You lose friends like that. How are you doing on a daily basis?
I wish that I could say that I'm okay. I'm not okay. But it's a process. There is days that I'm happy and I'm in a great position. And there is days that I have panic attack and nightmares and a lot of disconnections. But in the end, I'm taking care of myself. I did get back dancing. I'm sharing my friends with my family, and I know that no matter what, I'm not going to let them stop me from living my life.
A lot of people talk about the torture of the families of the hostages. But I think a lot about the families of the people who lost their family members in Nova Festival on October 7th and other massacres. Because, if you have someone who's a hostage, there's hope. Here you lost someone. Are you seeing them coping with that loss? Are the families getting back on track? Or are you seeing just destroyed families? What is the families of your friends? How do they feel?
So there's still a lot of families that don't get a lot of help and not dealing real the situation and not succeed to process it. But the Nova Festival make a foundation and then taking care of the family. And I met two parents that lost their kids, and they came with me to the exhibition in Miami, that was in Miami. And to see them sharing their son or daughter's story, it's really major deal for the healing process for them. And to share how his son lived and what he did and his personality.
That's a very important point that you just made. I see a lot of times people speaking in Congress and different governments around the world at different events about this traumatic thing that happened, about the murder and the rape and the attacks. Is this something that is helping them get through the process, or is it keeping the wound open?
I can say for myself, it's helped me a lot. It's helped me to remember a lot of things that I forgot and to process. And when it was too much, I got to a point that I succeed to say, it's too much, I need a break. And now I got back to do it again. But I can't do it all the time because it's still living a trauma every day.
How has this impacted your faith in God? Do you feel that God saved you, or do you feel, why have God let this happen to me?
So in the beginning, it was, always makes sense. Where is God? And now I believe. Now I believe, and God, my Father, angels, keep me alive, and I'm here for a reason.
Hila, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
I just want to ask to spread love. Be people of free love, don't hate. I don't hate no one, and I wish that nobody will hate, and I wish there will be peace.
Thank you, Hila, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
And now the truth from Zion.
As war rages in the Middle East, news organizations and social media platforms have perpetuated a staggering bias when it comes to reporting on the Hamas-Israel conflict.
The media bias against Israel is almost unbelievable. Some refuse to call Hamas terrorists. They use the Hamas spokespeople's lies as their talking points. And they even have reporters on their payroll who were present during the October 7th massacre.
When Hamas terrorists crossed the border at 6:30 Saturday morning on October 7th, they massacred innocent civilians, raped women and girls, beheaded babies, and pillaged communities. 1,200 Israelis and foreign nationals were killed. 240 people were taken hostage. Within days, media outlets, international leaders, and university professors were justifying the carnage. Reporters even tried to suggest that, given the context of the conflict, the violence could be understood. Social media influencers are becoming the biggest accomplices to the crimes of Hamas. Some social media influencers have racked up more followers than there are residents of Israel and Gaza combined. The goal of many is to motivate an uprising against the Jewish people by sharing false information and empowering anti-Semites to express their deep-seated hatred of Jews. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres claimed the event did not happen in a vacuum, and he stated that Israel's military response was a form of collective punishment. Media coverage has frequently favored the Palestinian perspective, choosing to highlight the destruction in Gaza while downplaying attacks on Israelis. One point of contention is the reluctance of media outlets like the BBC and CNN to label Hamas as a terrorist organization, even though the United States and the European Union declared them as such. Reporters also ignore the 20-year history of Hamas launching rocket attacks on Israeli civilians. These so-called freedom fighters mutilated babies, burned victims alive, and caused psychological trauma to family units by forcing them to watch their relatives being murdered. Foreign reporters who were photographed and videoed covering the October 7th massacre are suspected of knowing about the barbaric attack in advance. Reuters, the Associated Press, CNN, and the New York Times were some of the major organizations whose freelancers were at the border crossing within an hour or so of the incursion. One of the journalists was seen in a photo receiving a kiss from Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas leader who orchestrated the savage attack on October 7th. This leads to serious questions about the objectivity of their coverage, an issue that has received little international attention. Hamas is responsible for the Palestinian Health Ministry, which is the only agency recording the number of deaths in Gaza. International news organizations have conveniently trusted the data shared by the Palestinian Ministry of Health. News outlets are using the Hamas published figures without telling viewers or readers where the numbers come from, or that the News Bureau has not verified the facts themselves. This became particularly dangerous when the New York Times published Hamas propaganda, which stated that the Al-Ahli hospital in Gaza had been bombed by Israel, killing hundreds of people. Israel was condemned by the international community as journalists regurgitated the Hamas lies that hundreds of civilians had been killed. The IDF went to work and quickly proved that the rocket had hit the parking lot and not the actual hospital, and was in fact a misfired rocket launched by Palestinian terrorists. The damage to Israel's image was done, and the false narrative was simply swept under the rug. The bias in the media coverage continues to stoke the flames of conflict as war rages on in the Middle East. Anti-Semitism in the United States is up more than 300% since October 7th. It's even higher in other Western countries. The issue needs urgent attention. As narratives are skewed and misinformation is shared, the societal divide deepens even further. It is now more important than ever that the public needs to get informed about the facts and be selective about who they trust for their news.
Israel is the only free democracy in the Middle East, and time and again, the international media sides with terror organizations.
Responsible reporting is crucial. If not, the danger of media bias will be translated into violence on the streets. Up next, the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
Today I'm at Kibbutz Urim on an animal therapy farm. You see behind me a few of the horses the ICEJ has donated to enable children to come here for trauma therapy. The animal corner, the horses therapy area, it's all going to be expanded and renovated, and the ICEJ is a part of this special project. We invite you to come and learn more about it and join with us too.
Since 1980, the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem has been a voice of Christian support for Israel and connecting the global church to the land of the Bible. Headquartered in Jerusalem, the ICEJ has taken practical action to stand with Israel, such as helping Jews return to their ancestral homeland of Israel, caring for Holocaust survivors, providing bomb shelters for vulnerable communities, fighting anti-Semitism around the world, and inviting Christians to discover Israel for themselves.
שלום, אני עודד, אני מנהל את החווה פה באורים. אני מנהל את החווה הזאת משנת 2020. התחלנו במרץ 2020, בקורונה, והקורונה הביאה איתה הרבה אתגרים, ובגלל הסגרים פתחנו, סגרנו, ובסופו של דבר המשכנו, לא עצרנו. ובעצם המטרה פה היא לתת מענה מההתחלה, לתת מענה לאוכלוסייה ולקהילה פה במועצה אזורית אשכול ובמועצה אזורית שער הנגב, ואנחנו בעצם חווה טיפולית. המענה הוא מענה טיפולי, הוא תומך, הוא לעבוד עם ילדים עם קשיים, אם זה קשיים רגשיים, קשיים מוטוריים, זה היה ההתחלה, לשם זה הקמנו את החווה. ב7 לאוקטובר התחילה פה המלחמה. אנחנו כולנו פה מהאזור של העוטף, כולנו פה מכירים את האזור טוב, גדלנו פה. אני אישית מקיבוץ כפר עזה, והמשפחה שלי מכפר עזה, אז הטראומה, אנחנו מכירים אותה טוב מאוד, ממעגלים מאוד מאוד קרובים. וגם כל הצוות מהאזור, כל אחד מיישוב אחר. ובעצם בשביעי הרחבה נעצרה, נסגרה. היום ההתמקדות שלנו היא בטראומה, ואנחנו עוברים הכשרות לעבוד בטראומה. אנחנו בכלל, כל החווה עוברת שינוי. אז פינת החי בעצם זה מקום שהוא כיום מקום לא טוב, ואנחנו רוצים מאוד מאוד לפתח אותו. אנחנו מאוד רוצים לקחת אותו ולהפוך אותו למשהו שהוא היה פעם מאוד יפה. אם זה מבחינת המתקן, שאנחנו רוצים לעשות מתקן טוב, מגרש טוב, סוסים טובים, אז זה גם משהו שאנחנו עושים, ואנחנו עוד פעם אני אגיד שאנחנו נעזרים באנשים טובים שתורמים ועוזרים לנו לפתח ולהקים את הדבר הזה. אני רוצה מאוד להודות ולהגיד תודה רבה גדולה לשגרירות הנוצרית שעוזרת ואיתנו. אפשר להגיד לך תודה.
After Hamas brutally attacked Israel on October 7th, 2023, the ICEJ has been actively standing with Israel and her people through advocacy and urgently needed aid projects. Now is the time for Christians to turn their love for Israel and the Jewish people into real action as never before. Your donation will help in various relief projects for families, businesses, and whole communities in this ongoing recovery process. You can help deliver bomb shelters to at-risk areas, provide necessary supplies for first responders, provide trauma care to those shaken by the conflict, and help the hardest hit areas renovate and rebuild their communities. Visit ICEJUSA.tv to donate online or call 1-800-910-6355 and give your generous gift today.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebekah Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.